Hello novelists, this is Jill and we're going to talk now about character development, and I'm going to relate it to how we as individuals pick up any new skill, because that's really what your character is going through. They're learning new things about themselves, about other people, about situations, and they are acquiring knowledge and skill. So here's the example that I'm going to use, and it's one that hopefully most of you will be familiar with. And it's learning to drive. Now, if you don't drive, you could apply it to something much more simple, like maybe learning to walk, but the same principles still apply. So let's think about when we're learning to drive. If you are anything like me, when I first sat in the car in the driver's seat instead of in the passenger seat, I really did not have a clue what all of those pedals and buttons and sticky out things were for. It really made no sense to me at all, even though I had been in a car millions of times. So at that stage, I needed instruction on that's the accelerator, that is the brake, and that is the clutch, and here's your handbrake, and that's what you do with it, and really very close detail on everything that was in that car. And that was even before we'd got to the stage of understanding traffic rules and road safety and so on. So I got into the car quite confidently, really excited that I was about to embark on this new stage of my life, which will lead to my independence and my maturity, and suddenly realized that actually I knew nothing. There was so much more to this than I had ever anticipated, and I was really before the beginner stage, because I didn't even know what it was that I didn't know. Now this stage, in psychological terms, is known as the stage of unconscious incompetence. That is, we're not able to do what we're meant to do, and that's because we don't know what it is that we're meant to do, and we have no idea how to actually apply those skills. So then we set off on our driving lessons, and we start to pick up a few skills, and those will include some of those road safety issues and how to avoid pedestrians, as well as learning all those little tricks that you need to do in order to be able to drive. So at that stage, remember, you're still thinking about having your hands at 10 and 2 o'clock, and you're still thinking mirror signal maneuver every time you glance in the mirror, every time you set off to do something. So there is progress, there is evidence that you're learning to do things, and you can certainly take the car from one point to another, possibly without damaging yourself or anybody else. But this is quite a painful stage. This is the stage of knowing that there's still so much more for you to learn. There's still oodles of things that you need to accommodate in order to be a good driver, as opposed to just someone who's still a learner. And this is the stage we would then call conscious incompetence, because by now we know just how much it is that we don't know. And this is where we try things out and they fail, where we try to do little things or take shortcuts occasionally, and they of course cause us major problems. So it's really quite a testing time of trying out new things. But then after our 6 months of lessons, or our year of lessons, or our several years of lessons in some people's cases, then we start to get the hang of it. And at that point we take our test and we pass, and we go off and we are now a driver. We're driving on the streets, on the roads, possibly without anybody else in attendance. And we then start to learn other little things that we perhaps never realized as we went through our driving lessons, which are those subtleties that you pick up once you have been driving for a while. Like, for instance, if you pull out onto a motorway, that the backdraft from a lorry is going to cause your car to wiggle a little. Those are the kind of things you don't really start to understand until you're out there practicing it on your own. So this is the stage that we would call, can you guess? It's conscious competence. We know what we're doing. We're able to do it. We are able to drive our cars and get from A to B. And we also have to still think about it. So we will still occasionally tell ourselves, oh, mirror signal maneuver, or we will still be conscious of where our hand position is on the steering wheel, and we'll be extra careful about road safety rules and doing things by the book a little bit. And in our conscious competence stage, then we know what we need to know, and we're trying it out. We're trying out new ways, and we might actually, during this stage, start to develop our own idiosyncrasies around driving. So it may be that you have to have your seat in a particular position, or that you need to always have your visor down or your visor up. These are just the little things that will apply to you now as a driver, as opposed to the strict learning environment in which you were having your lessons. So that's conscious competence and knowing what it is that you know and trying it out, trying out different ways of doing things. Then eventually, and this could take a year or two, and it's certainly the stage that I guess many of us are at now, we get to the stage where we can actually drive without thinking about it at all. We don't even consider the fact that we are getting into a car, turning an engine over and directing a piece of metal down the road, among other pieces of metal. So we, at that stage, can often go for miles, or Ks in this case, without thinking about it at all, without even being conscious that we are driving. And this is very often the stage when our minds will drift and we'll wander off and think of great stories, or have conversations with people in our heads, or we'll listen to music, and we won't actually be conscious of what it is that we're doing. We're probably multitasking to some degree. And this will be the kind of environment where you can suddenly pull into your drive and realize that you haven't noticed the last 20 minutes of your journey. You've done it completely on autopilot because, in fact, your mind has been off doing something else, because your body now knows instinctively what it needs to do to drive your car. Now, as you've probably worked out, this is a stage of unconscious competence. So we are now at the stage where we can literally take our conscious mind out of the activity and just allow ourselves to be in it. And this stage is really where we've stopped thinking about learning to drive. We've just acquired that skill completely. We now just are drivers. That is a state of our being. We are drivers. And that is the stage of unconscious competence. Now, we don't want to be fully unconscious, and often this can be a slightly worrying time when you look up and realize you haven't noticed the last 20 minutes of your journey. But it is the stage where we can be fully aware that we are very able in this capacity. And this is what your characters are going to go through as well. So they'll go from not knowing what it is that they don't know to suddenly they don't think about it at all. They just are. And of course it won't be that sudden. It will be the journey that they go through throughout the book that will lead them to that point. So that is the art of learning a new skill, of going from unconscious incompetence through conscious incompetence, where we know how much we don't know, then on to conscious competence, when we are aware that we know a number of skills and we can try them out. And then finally leading to that stage of relaxation into a new state of being, which is the point of unconscious competence. I hope you're all getting there with your writing, and you can go back now to your PDF and work out how this applies to your character development. Happy writing.